New York City, 1976. Author and researcher Zecharia Sitchin publishes his book The 12th Planet, introducing his revolutionary interpretation of the Anunnaki deities. After studying Sumerian cuneiform tablets for 30 years, he asserts that these so-called Sumerian gods were in fact extraterrestrials that landed on Earth in Mesopotamia more than 450,000 years ago. According to Sitchin's translations, the Anunnaki both created human beings and also had a hand in mankind's downfall when a great flood nearly destroyed all life on Earth. But why? What was the purpose of the Anunnaki's earthly visitations? And why did they create the creature known as man? Sitchin's Anunnaki. Sitchin wrote a number of well-received books on the Anunnaki, which he believed were extraterrestrial entities from a planet called Nibiru, which he quite controversially believed actually exists in our solar system. His theory was that they had upgraded the human race and used them as a kind of slave species. Based on his interpretation of the tablets, the mission had to do with the failing atmosphere around the planet Nibiru, and that when the Anunnaki came, they came to mine gold. They had damaged their own atmosphere, and through using gold, they found that they could patch the atmospheric holes, and this, according to Sitchin, becomes the story of our humanity. The Anunnaki literally came to Earth to mine gold, and when they realized it was such a toil to do so, they created us as a worker race to do it for them. Sitchin's hypothesis that the Anunnaki came to mine gold and then created humans to perform the task was both bold and controversial. Needless to say, it was not embraced by mainstream scholars, but many ancient astronaut theorists believe that Sitchin's interpretation of the tablets is not only correct, but also provides compelling evidence that the Anunnaki created mankind. What if the whole Anunnaki story is a global story of a non-human intelligence that was manipulating genes all over the planet? That it was not just about gold, that it was a planetary base. The Anunnaki, after all, said that they came from Nibiru, and they spoke of Nibiru as a star, a gate, and a crossing place, opening up the possibility that they were actually traveling the stars through stargates and wormholes. Nineveh and the tablets, northern Iraq. Along the east bank of the Tigris River, opposite the city of Mosul, lay the ruins of the ancient city of Nineveh, a place originally inhabited by the Sumerians of Mesopotamia. Here, in 1842, British archaeologist Austen Henry Layard unearthed the ruins of the Great Library of Ashurbanipal, a royal archive containing thousands of clay tablets with cuneiform inscriptions. Dating back to around 3000 BC, the messages carved into stone are considered to be among the world's first written accounts. Sumerian tablets are probably one of the oldest forms of written record we have. They have been translated, and they tell exciting stories about how gods intermingled with human beings and actually had a hand in the creation of human beings. Whether it is just mythology or whether it is fact, no one really knows. According to interpretations of the Sumerian tablets, these gods were called the Anunnaki. One iconic tablet from this period shows a tree of life flanked by divine beings. The Anunnaki stand on each side. Above them floats a winged disc, a symbolic reference, ancient astronaut theorists say, to the Anunnaki's power of flight. They also wear necklaces with astronomical references, a moon, a star, various symbols, which some have even compared to a wristwatch. Technology being used on this reading 6,000 years ago. The written accounts etched into stone suggest the Anunnaki were giant beings standing 8 feet tall, who came to Earth in search of gold for their home planet. When they realized the toll it was taking to mine the gold themselves, they decided to fashion a worker being, a slave to mine the gold for them. And they explain in the Sumerian creation tales that this was an arduous process. So it is very possible ancient astronaut theorists argue that our genetic evolution was a process carried out by the Anunnaki to create us in their image and after their likeness. They created man. According to the Sumerian text, they created Adam and Eve. How interesting that the Bible would echo the story, but talk about it in terms of one God. These highly advanced creatures were acting almost as teachers. Sumerian culture and mythology is full of stories of receiving visitations from these mysterious higher entities that bestowed wisdom, fantastic ideas, and concepts. You have to wonder, is this just down to myth, or was somebody coming down and really trying to give us a push? Language as a gift from the gods. Ancient chronicles of sky beings creating human life are common in early cultures found all over the world. But while mainstream scholars often dismiss this evidence, might such tangible historical accounts provide proof of alien intervention in man's evolution, as ancient astronaut theorists believe? The Sumerians are not the only culture that talks about this. In the Quran, it is said that language was given to us by God. The Mayan Popol Vuh says that language was given to us by the gods. The ancient Egyptian texts say the same thing. It does not matter what ancient culture we look at, They all say the same thing, that language was a gift from the gods. Petroglyphs and star beings. Prior to the use of early systems of writing, ancient people carved symbolic communication into stone, called petroglyphs. The oldest date to about 10 to 12,000 years ago. According to ancient astronaut theorists, petroglyphs located in the American Southwest link the prehistoric ancestors of the Zuni and Hopi tribes with star beings. The first graphic expressions by humans were petroglyphs, symbols or figures scratched into stones. The Hopi Indians, for example, scratched petroglyphs into their rock faces that show people with radiating wreaths, gods that descend from the sky. The Hopi say that these beings are kachinas, beings from space who came to Earth in aircraft, who are not gods but who brought them knowledge from another planet. The same phenomenon appears in Europe in Val Camonica, in Asia, in Brazil. When we look at the fact that all around the world we hear similar legends of people from the stars coming to having a profound impact on the people of this country or that particular culture, all in broadly similar timeframes, a pattern developed. And it is difficult to dismiss that pattern is suggestive. In our ancient past, creatures came down and interacted with us and perhaps manipulated us to become the people we are today. The Birdman of Lascaux, the Lascaux Cave, southwestern France. Discovered in 1940 near the village of Montignac, this cave complex is covered in Paleolithic paintings dating back more than 17,000 years. Anthropologists believe ancient shamans used these subterranean chambers to perform sacred rituals. And curiously, among the many Ice Age animals depicted on the walls, there is a strange creature that has the body of a man and the head of a bird. The technical term for such a creature is a therianthrope, from the Greek therion, meaning wild beast, and anthropos, meaning man. Clearly, these were not things one encounters in everyday life. The imagery of cave art is best explained as the experiences that shamans undergo in a deep state of trance. When they return from that trance state, they then depict on the cave walls the visions they have seen in this deeply altered state of consciousness. The Birdman found in Lascaux is reminiscent of one of the Egyptians' most important gods, Thoth. It is also consistent with the depiction of the Sumerian sky gods, the Anunnaki. But is it mere coincidence that these shamans are encountering the same types of beings while in a trance that the world's earliest civilizations depicted as their gods? In all of these different indigenous cultures around the world, there are remarkable similarities of what types of beings people claim to be meeting when they go out of body. This suggests that in the dream plane and in the shamanic state, there is in fact a real place that we are going and real beings that we are encountering when we get there. Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that these were the same teachers, the teachers who went to all the ancient cultures and brought them the basics for what we have accomplished today. There was a big, noticeable change in human behavior around 40,000 years ago, exactly at the time that our ancestors began to manifest the first amazing cave art. What is clear is that it is not a coincidence at the moment the cave art begins. We also witness, in the archaeological record, a radical change in human behavior. The Enuma Elish, Nineveh, Iraq, 1849. A treasure trove of ancient cuneiform texts is uncovered, detailing accounts of the creation of Earth, of man, and of the lives of the gods. In 1849, Austin Henry Layard made an archaeological expedition to Nineveh, a city that is mentioned in the Bible. In his excavations, he discovered the palace of Sennacherib, well known from the Bible. This galvanized the interest of the world. 3 years after this, his assistant found the palace of his grandson Ashurbanipal on the opposite side of the mound. In both cases, they found archives. Together, the archives form about 20 to 30,000 tablets. Recorded on 7 of these tablets is the Babylonian creation myth called the Enuma Elish. The Enuma Elish was probably composed in the 11th century BC, but almost certainly the story goes back to much earlier periods. The tablets tell of a god named Marduk, who took blood from the god Kingu and mixed it with clay in order to create the Earth's first humans. In the Anunnaki reading, this is the creation of the model man, a figure who gets picked up as a story in the Bible and is called Adam. What is interesting is that the Bible left out some of the most important details and cut the story short. The Sumerian tablets, the Mesopotamian tablets, have the more detailed versions. Anunnaki is a term that means from heaven to earth they came. The knowledge that came out from Nineveh is a complete look at a civilization that sprang up out of nowhere. Many of the tablets unearthed at Nineveh describe nuances of the actual mindset of these gods, describing the Anunnaki as flesh and blood beings just like us. In the ancient astronaut reading, the Anunnaki themselves were physical beings that came here in giant spaceships that our ancestors thought were some type of divine apparition. Our ancestors, especially the Sumerians, received help, and that help came from nowhere else but up there. According to ancient astronaut theorists, the Enuma Elish vividly describes nothing gods, but otherworldly beings, alien visitors, who possessed a highly advanced knowledge of genetics. The Anunnaki began to figure out how they could create a docile worker. They took genes from a female hominid, and after many trials, they figured out they could blend genes together and create the perfect being. In a sense, what these tablets are really talking about is genetic engineering, the changing of the DNA within human beings. Clearly, something happened where we went from nothing to all of a sudden coming up with the most incredible thought models. So the question is, how was it done? And according to the ancient alien theory, our ancestors were given intelligence by a deliberate change of our DNA by space travelers who came here thousands of years ago. The Nomoli and the Sky Stones, from the mysterious statues of Sierra Leone to the Dogon tribe of Mali and the Babylonian worship of Dagon to the Japanese stories of dragons and the curious Dogu figures, ancient astronaut theorists argue that there are eerie similarities between ancient cultures that indicate they were all visited by the same extraterrestrial beings from the star system Sirius. If there were beings from the Sirius star system, they may have come for a short period of time. They may have been harvesting metals. They may have been harvesting genetic material, and then they leave. But is there any physical evidence? For some, the presence of a chromium sphere inside a statue estimated to be 17,000 years old and ancient figurines that appear to depict spacesuits are proof enough. But could there also be actual artifacts from another world? Among the people of Sierra Leone, local legend has it that when their Nomoli gods fell from heaven, part of the sky turned to stone and rained down with them. These strange blue stones, called sky stones, have been found alongside the statues. At first, archaeologists thought they were just blue stones, but when they analyzed them, they could not figure out how these had been made, although the people in Sierra Leone insisted that they were actually pieces of the blue sky that fell with the Nomoli. If these mysterious blue stones are really connected to the legend of the sky turning to stone and raining down on the earth with the arrival of the Nomoli, what could they be? Some type of protective covering for an alien spacecraft, pieces of a heat shield, perhaps like the tiles that covered the bottom of the space shuttle. And if so, might further scientific examination of them support the idea that the Nomoli were actually extraterrestrial visitors, perhaps from the Sirius star system. Seattle, Washington. In search of further evidence that the Nomoli statues may have an extraterrestrial connection, ancient astronaut theorist David Childress arranged to meet up with skystone collector and researcher Jared Collins. Collins has been gathering sky stones since he first heard about them in 2013, fascinated by their enigmatic nature, betraying neither obvious mineral nor man-made origin. The stones were first discovered in the modern era in 1991 by a man named David Leadbetter. He was in Sierra Leone on a mining concession looking for gold and diamonds. When his crew dug, occasionally these stones would appear. Interestingly, Leadbetter went to the village chief to ask if he had ever seen any of these stones before. The chief told him that when these stones are found, large amounts of gold and diamonds usually follow shortly thereafter. The stones have now been sent to 12 different labs. There is not one piece of consensus. Everybody has a different opinion. We still do not know whether these are natural or man-made, or whether they came from somewhere else entirely. The Zuni people of New Mexico, 30 miles south of Gallup, New Mexico, lies the pueblo of Zuni. Sheltered from the desolate high plains, this adobe city is home to the Zuni Indians, one of the oldest indigenous tribes in North America. They have inhabited this land for almost 2,000 years and have protected their secrets for far longer. The Zuni are a very interesting culture in that they are one of the few that have not really opened up to the rest of the world about their star knowledge traditions. Most of this type of information is very closely held by the natives. It is intriguing that we are now in the time period in history we are starting to learn more and more about their star knowledge. Much of the Zuni people's history is etched into the rocks in the New Mexico desert. Tribal elder Clifford Mahudi and archaeologist Dan Simplicio have studied the Zuni secret history firsthand, collecting stories passed down through generations that are rooted in the belief that the tribe's creators and protectors are supernatural beings from the sky. Celestial images are often depicted in Zuni cultural petroglyphs, depicting a star, perhaps the supernova of the Crab Nebula. Zuni mythology, the prayer system, and the ritualistic protocols all talk about these people who came over here and told the Zuni how to live their lives as being sky people. If you listen to a lot of religious chants and songs and prayers, that is all they talk about. They talk about space, about out there in the universe where they came from. They depict it on the rock wall. The actual meaning of it is something more profound and more complex. These drawings are thought to have been created around 1200 BC, yet they appear to depict modern space travelers and their vehicles. Some figures on the rocks have a dome with eyes, something coming down, like a nose, sort of a nose that flares out. Some have two legs coming out and a broad diamond-shaped body. Now, usually they are called UFOs, but in the Zuni way, the people have always been taught that they are the keepers of the upper world, which means space. They are the sky people, beings of extraterrestrial origin, and this is still within Zuni mythology and religious practices today. Val Camonica and the Communion Rose, Val Camonica, Italy. Ancient astronaut theorist William Henry traveled to this UNESCO World Heritage Site to investigate the area's mysterious petroglyphs. Val Camonica is a treasure trove of images from the ancient world that have been well documented and studied by scholars. They do not agree on the meaning of the images, but some of them are very open-minded to the ancient astronaut theory. His guide, Luca Girelli, head of the Val Camonica Historical and Anthropological Society, led him to an area with a panel of ancient petroglyphs that appear strikingly familiar to modern eyes. A figure with what looks unmistakably like a helmet. A figure that almost seems to glow. And right beside them, the communion rose. Archaeologists call this mysterious object the communion rose because of its flower-like shape. While its exact meaning is lost to history, some believe it to be a religious symbol or a representation of the movement of the stars. But ancient astronaut theorists suggest it might also depict something else, the vessel that brought these helmeted figures to Val Camonica. As though you look up in the sky, and you would see this kind of twirling, spinning ship in the sky. Just looking at it, they are trying to talk about beings coming from other worlds, maybe to this place. Sometimes the stars at the center of the carvings mean energy, energy from the stars coming to this place, or star beings coming to this place. This rock surface is, on this reading, like a newspaper. It says that this was in the sky above us at some point, and this spaceman came down and met the communion people. Phaethon and the founding of Turin. According to ancient stories, the nearby city of Turin was founded by a character from Greek mythology called Phaethon, who came to Earth from the stars. Legend states that Turin was founded by who was a son of the sun god Helios. The myth of Phaethon, we learn the story of how he descended to Earth in a fiery chariot, perhaps crashing into Mount Musyne. This also led to something fortuitous, because he brought gifts to this place. He had great skills, was a metallurgist, and taught these to the local people. When we look at myths such as the myth of Phaethon, here is, read through the ancient astronaut lens, the story of a UFO landing on a mountain and interacting with the locals. And when we look behind this myth of Phaethon, perhaps this is what we are also seeing at Val Camonica. Given the connection with the helmeted spaceman etched into the rock, ancient astronaut theorists argue we have to be open to the possibility that what the ancient artist is trying to portray is something that they actually saw in the sky, something coming out of the heavens. The Dogon of Mali and Sirius B, Mali, in northwest Africa. Deep in a remote valley lived the Dogon people, descendants of a nomadic tribe that settled here around 1000 AD. Just like Akhenaten's followers, the Dogon had been forced to leave Egypt because of religious persecution. The Dogon are laying claim to a very long and ancient tradition, and in the view of some researchers, they maintain some of the ancient Egyptian traditions and myths that have been carried on right into the present age. Parts of ancient Egypt may not have died, they were carried on this view, to this day among the Dogon. But what exactly are their beliefs? Dogon mythology holds that the sky god Amma created the first living creature, known as Namo. The legend also says that shortly after his creation, Namo multiplied into several parts, one of which rebelled against Amma. Amma responded by destroying him and scattering his ashes throughout the world. According to the Dogon myths, a god gave them their knowledge. He descended from the sky in an ark, surfing on fire, and landed in a storm. Still today, the Dogon celebrate a festival in honor of Namo and that visitation that occurred in the remote past. We know this because, for this festival, they have wooden masks that date back to a very long time ago, to when the festival began. Dogon masks tell the mystic stories of their ancestors. There is a sculpture of the creator they call Amma, embracing the universe. This is how they pass on information from generation to generation by stories carved in masks. The Namo parallel and Akhenaten. But could Namo have been a real person? Some see eerie similarities between the Dogon legend and the story of the mysterious pharaoh Akhenaten. Akhenaten believed he was directly descended from the sun god Aten. Namo was said to have been created by the sky deity Amma. Is it a coincidence that both cultures, although thousands of miles apart, shared mythical tales of beings coming from the skies, and both Namo and Akhenaten are depicted with elongated heads? Is it possible that these legends were based on real events? The Dogon dwell in the central plateau region of Bandiagara. Their knowledge is centuries old, and their priests have been sharing it with only chosen individuals. In the 1920s, French anthropologist Marcel Grioul and ethnologist Germaine Dieterlen visited the tribe and were invited to share in some of their secrets. But one secret stood out. The Dogon claimed that their god Amma came from a specific star in the Sirius constellation, the same place where the ancient Egyptians believed their god Osiris was born. This star, which modern astronomers refer to as Sirius B, the Dogon called Potolo. What baffles experts is that the star is so far from Earth, it is impossible to see with the naked eye. The Dogon should not have known about the existence of this star. Sirius is the second nearest star from our solar system, 8 light-years away. It is not even visible with standard telescopes. It was first literally seen and photographed in the 1970s. Modern science has corroborated that Sirius B does indeed exist. The problem is that the Dogon knew about this before modern science corroborated it. A white dwarf and a secret passed down, measurements taken with the Hubble telescope in 2003 have confirmed that Sirius B is what is known as a white dwarf, a partially burnt-out, extremely dense mass. Although it is smaller in size than the Earth, it is estimated to weigh 8 times as much as our Sun. But how did the Dogon acquire this ancient knowledge of astronomy? Knowledge that seems to be centuries more advanced than that of modern science. The mystery is, how did this story get passed down the generations? If the story came from a time before astronomers knew, there was a companion star to Sirius, one that cannot be seen with the human eye. The Dogon themselves have a symbol for Sirius. When you move it around, you can see an orbit around the center marked by Sirius A. Sirius B circles around it, so it is a circular system. This sign is practically an astronomical model, one that the Dogon could not have invented because only Sirius A was visible. Sirius B and C are invisible. However, their description of the orbit is correct. One assumption, the assumption ancient astronaut theorists keep returning to, is that this god Namo, who brought them this knowledge, could have been an extraterrestrial intelligence.